Galen Ward had always been a man who lived at the edge of the world. On the frontier planet Aurelia 9, life was harsh and only the strong survived. The red sun cast long shadows over jagged mountains and endless plains of sharp rocks. Gale force winds swept across deserts where nothing grew but hardy plants and strange creeping creatures. Most people avoided these lands, but not Galen. He had grown up climbing cliffs taller than towers and fighting beasts larger than his farmhouse. His strength was legendary, but it was not just muscle that defined him. It was courage, cunning, and an unshakable sense of right and wrong. The morning began like any other. Galen rose before dawn, the cold biting at his skin as he prepared his tools for a day of exploring. Mining for rare minerals was not glamorous work, but it kept him sharp and fed the settlers nearby. He mounted his all-terrain rover and drove through winding canyons where the shadows moved like living things. He had always felt that these canyons held secrets. Something in the way the wind howled, the way the rocks jutted sharply from the earth made him feel as though the planet itself was alive, watching him. As he turned a corner, a flash of light caught his eye. A metallic gleam reflected the sun's first rays, bouncing wildly across the canyon walls. Galen slowed his rover and squinted. At first he thought it was just a shard of rock, but then he saw smoke, black and curling, and realized it was something far stranger. A ship had crash-landed. Its hull was scorched and smoke hissed from broken panels. He had seen old wrecks before, relics of failed mining drones or transport ships, but this looked different. Too new, too alive. He approached cautiously, gripping his multi-tool tightly. As he drew closer, the ship door hissed open and two figures emerged. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Tall, slender, and graceful, with skin that shimmered like polished silver, the two beings looked almost ethereal. Their eyes were large and luminous, reflecting the red sunlight in a way that made them seem otherworldly. They wore flowing garments that glowed faintly, and they carried strange devices that buzzed and hummed with energy. Who are you?" Galen asked, his voice steady despite the shock. He had faced wild beasts and rogue robots, but this was new entirely. One of the figures stepped forward. Her voice was melodic, yet it carried a weight of authority. "I am Liara, Princess of the Celestari Empire," she said. Her companion, slightly shorter but equally regal, nodded. "And I am Serena, her sister." They both looked weary, as if they had been running for days without rest. Galen felt a mix of awe and caution. The Celestari Empire was a name he had heard only in distant stories. They were said to be powerful, advanced, and untouchable. Yet here were two of its heirs, stranded on a dangerous, barely charted planet. "Why are you here? How did this happen?" he asked. Liara's eyes darkened with worry. "We were fleeing from Lord Zither," she said. "He seeks to conquer our empire. We barely escaped with our lives, and our ship was damaged beyond repair. We need to reach a portal hidden on this planet, one that can transport us safely back to our world." Galen frowned. Galactic politics and interstellar wars were not his concern. He fought for survival, for those he cared about, for justice where he could see it clearly. But as he looked into the princesses' faces, he saw something familiar. Fear, hope, and determination all mixed together. He could not turn away. His reputation was built on courage, yes, but also on helping those in need, regardless of the danger. "I'll help you," he said finally, "but I need to know more. How dangerous is this journey?" Liara and Serena exchanged a glance. "Aurelia 9 is unforgiving," Liara said. "There are creatures that can tear a man apart in seconds, storms that can strip flesh from bone, and regions of land where even our technology may fail. But you are human. You have something special, something that may give us a chance." Galen smiled faintly. "Humans were often underestimated, even by other humans, let alone aliens. Well, I don't like being underestimated. Let's see what your world thinks it can throw at me." The trio set off, Galen leading the way with his rover, navigating the rocky terrain with precision. The first few miles were tense. The planet's wildlife, though wary of humans, seemed curious about the strange visitors. Small, spiny creatures scuttled in the shadows, eyes glinting, watching from afar. The princesses studied them closely, occasionally using small devices to scan the area. Galen, however, relied on instinct. He could sense when a creature was about to strike, when a rock was loose, when the ground might collapse. By midday, they reached a narrow canyon that would test their skills. The walls were sheer, and the path was littered with sharp rocks and treacherous drops. As they began climbing, a sudden rumble shook the canyon floor. From the shadows, a massive creature lunged. Its body covered in armored plates, claws like scythes, and eyes that glowed like coals. Liara and Serena froze, unprepared for such raw violence. Galen did not. He grabbed a jagged rock and hurled it with precision, striking the creature's eye. It roared in anger and confusion, giving them a moment to climb higher. Using his strength, Galen lifted Serena over a ledge and then Liara, ensuring they stayed safe. He fought back with a combination of cunning and brute force, finally forcing the creature to retreat into the shadows. Breathing heavily, the princesses looked at him with a mix of awe and relief. "You were amazing," Serena said softly. "No one in our empire could have done that," Galen shrugged. "It's called survival. Humans have a way of figuring things out when they have to." He noticed a small smile on Liara's face. For the first time since the crash, there was a glimmer of hope. As they continued their journey, Galen learned more about the princess's world. The Celestari Empire was vast and technologically superior, yet even its mightiest warriors were vulnerable without strategy and adaptability. Liara spoke of peace, of a civilization that valued knowledge and art, of a home where science and culture thrived. But war had corrupted it all, leaving only fear and survival. Galen listened, fascinated. Despite their power, the princesses were still vulnerable, and yet they trusted him, a human, to protect them. The thought made him both proud and wary. He knew the journey ahead would not be easy. Lord Zither would not give up, and Aurelia 9 had dangers beyond anything the princesses had imagined. Night fell, and they camped under the crimson sky. Galen built a fire, the warmth comforting against the cold desert air. Liara and Serena sat beside him, sharing what little food they had. The stars stretched endlessly above, and for a moment, the vastness of the universe felt overwhelming. "Why did you decide to help us?" Liara asked quietly. Galen poked at the fire thoughtfully. "Because someone had to," he said. "Because it's right. And because humans, we don't give up. We find a way, even when things seem impossible." Serena nodded slowly. "I think that is why the universe has not forgotten humans," she said. "You survive where others fail, and you fight for what is right even when it is hard." Galen smiled faintly, staring into the flames. He had never thought of humans as special in the way she described. Strength, courage, cunning, these were tools, not glory. Yet as he looked at the princesses, he felt the weight of their trust, the importance of the role he had taken. It was a responsibility unlike any he had ever known. The night passed quietly, but the silence was deceptive. Shadows moved in the distance, and Galen sensed that danger was never far. He had faced death many times, yet protecting these two fragile beings brought a different kind of challenge. It was not just about survival, it was about strategy, foresight, and heart. By dawn, Galen was ready. The canyon stretched before them, filled with unknown threats and unpredictable terrain. But he would not falter. The princesses were counting on him, and something deep inside told him that humanity, with all its flaws and strengths, was capable of more than anyone imagined. He looked at Liara and Serena, determination burning in his eyes. "We move carefully, we stay sharp, and we keep going," he said. "No matter what comes, we survive together. And we finish this journey." The princesses nodded, their trust in him absolute. For the first time since the crash, they felt hope. And for the first time in a long time, Galen realized that helping them was not just about courage. It was about showing the universe that humans, though small and fragile in appearance, could rise to greatness when it mattered most. As the trio set off deeper into the heart of Aurelia 9, the red sun climbed higher, casting long, dancing shadows across the rocky landscape. Each step brought them closer to danger, to challenges they could not yet foresee, and to a destiny that would reveal what made humans truly strong. And Galen walked on, unshaken, ready for whatever the universe would throw at him. The morning air was sharp and cold as Galen led Liara and Serena deeper into the rugged expanse of Aurelia 9. The canyon walls rose like silent sentinels, their jagged edges catching the first rays of the sun. Each step required attention. Each movement demanded precision. Galen's muscles ached from the previous day's exertion, but he ignored it. There was no room for weakness. Danger was always close, and he could feel it in the tension of the planet, in the way the wind whispered through the rocks. Liara and Serena followed, careful and alert. But their grace could not replace the grounded experience that Galen brought. Their alien devices hummed softly, scanning the environment, warning of dangers he could sense with instinct alone. There was a rhythm to the journey, an unspoken trust forming between the human and the princesses. Galen often glanced at them, noting their wide eyes, their nervous movements, and the way they relied on him without hesitation. He did not take pride in it, but he acknowledged the responsibility. It weighed on him like a stone in his chest. They had been walking for hours when the first real challenge appeared. A vast field of crystalline spikes stretched before them, the rocks gleaming in unnatural colors under the sun. Some spikes pulsed faintly as if alive, and Galen realized that the terrain was far more dangerous than it seemed. One wrong step could pierce through flesh or crush a limb. "This is going to take patience," Galen muttered, kneeling to examine the path. "We'll have to go slowly, one careful step at a time." Liara stepped forward, studying the crystals with her device. "Some of these are highly unstable," she warned. "Touching them could trigger a reaction. I've never seen anything like this on our home world." Galen nodded. "Stay close. Follow my lead, and whatever happens, do not panic." The crossing was slow, each step deliberate. Galen tested each spike with his multi-tool, using it as a makeshift probe to ensure the ground beneath was firm. He guided Serena and Liara, lifting them over particularly dangerous patches and pulling them back from sudden drops. They moved like a single unit, the rhythm of trust and survival binding them together. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. Galen froze. The crystals vibrated faintly and the hum grew louder, a threatening pulse that resonated through the canyon. Liara's device beeped frantically. "It's a defensive system," she exclaimed. "The crystals are alive, or semi-alive. They react to vibrations and movement." Galen narrowed his eyes. "Then we have to move without making noise. Quiet steps, careful hands." He began crawling, showing the princesses how to minimize their contact with the ground. The crystal's hum rose with each wrong touch, but by using his hands and tools strategically, Galen created a safe path. Hours passed before they finally reached solid rock on the other side. The princesses exhaled, exhausted but relieved. You really are remarkable," Serena said quietly, her admiration evident. "No one from our empire could have navigated this safely." Galen shrugged, brushing dust from his clothes. "It's what humans do. We find a way when we have to." The afternoon brought another challenge. Clouds began gathering in the sky, dark and heavy, their presence almost unnatural. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of a storm, but this was no ordinary weather. Aurelia 9 was known for sudden electric sandstorms, fierce blasts of wind carrying charged particles that could strip flesh from bone and fry circuits in seconds. Galen spotted the first signs. The air shimmered and small sparks danced along the rocks. "We need to find shelter," he said, scanning the terrain. There was a small overhang a few hundred meters ahead. They rushed toward it, but the storm arrived faster than anticipated. The wind howled like a living beast, tearing at their clothing and tossing dust into their eyes. Galen shielded the princesses with his body as they stumbled toward the rocks. Once they reached the overhang, they huddled together, the storm raging around them. Liara's device barely survived the charged particles, sparking intermittently. Serena pressed her hand against it, whispering words that Galen did not understand. The device calmed, but the storm continued its violent dance. "This planet, it's trying to kill us," Serena said, her voice trembling. Galen shook his head. "It's not personal. It's survival. And we're not going to lose." He looked at the princesses, seeing fear and exhaustion in their eyes. "You trust me, right?" Liara nodded. "Completely." "Good, then we endure, we wait, and then we move when the storm allows." Hours passed, the storm gradually losing strength. By nightfall, the sky cleared, revealing a blanket of stars so vast it was almost overwhelming. Galen lit a small fire for warmth and cooked a simple meal from their supplies. The princesses watched, fascinated by the simplicity and effectiveness of human methods. "You use fire like this? To cook, to warm, to signal?" Liara asked. "Fire is basic," Galen said with a small smile. "But it works. You don't need technology for everything." Serena laughed softly. "Perhaps humans are stronger than we thought, not just in muscle but in spirit." The conversation was cut short by a distant rumble. Galen's senses sharpened immediately. "Move," he shouted. The princesses followed as he led them toward the shadows of nearby rocks. From the distance, a group of Zither's scouts appeared, mechanical soldiers, sleek and deadly, scanning the area for the princesses. "They've found us," Liara whispered, fear evident in her voice. Galen crouched, examining the terrain. The rocks offered cover, and he quickly devised a plan. Using a combination of natural traps, rolling boulders, and well-aimed throws, he managed to delay the scouts. Serena and Liara used their devices to confuse and misdirect the enemy, creating illusions that made the scouts hesitate. Hours of careful maneuvering allowed them to escape, but the encounter left them shaken. "I underestimated them," Galen admitted, breathing heavily. "We have to stay sharp. Scyther won't stop until he has you." The princesses nodded. "We understand, and we trust you to keep us alive." By dawn, they were moving again, tired but resolute. Galen's strength was more than physical. It was mental, strategic, and emotional. He could endure pain, but he also knew when to retreat, when to wait, and when to push forward. The princesses began to realize that humans were not merely primitive beings. They were adaptable, inventive, and capable of astonishing bravery. Their journey took them across deserts where the ground shimmered with heat, through forests of crystalline trees that bent and glowed with the light of Aurelia 9's sun, and over cliffs where the wind threatened to throw them into the abyss. Each challenge tested their skills and their trust in one another. One evening, as they rested near a glowing river of molten rock, Liara spoke softly. "I never imagined a human could survive this planet, let alone protect us. Why do you risk so much for strangers?" Galen stared into the molten river, the light reflecting in his eyes. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because if I didn't, no one else would. And because humans survive by helping each other. That's what makes us strong." Serena smiled, her respect evident. "You are more than just strong, Galen Ward. You are extraordinary." They rested, and for a brief moment the universe seemed to pause. The wind softened. The molten river's glow reflected on their faces, and the bond between human and princesses grew deeper. But danger was never far. The next morning, as they prepared to continue, Galen noticed strange markings on the ground. Tracks too large for humans, too organized for animals. Zither's forces were near. "We have company," he said quietly. Liara and Serena readied their devices. "We must move quickly," Liara said. "If they catch us, it may be the end." Galen nodded. "Then we don't stop. We move like humans always do, forward no matter what." And so they pressed on, aware that the journey ahead would be the most dangerous yet. The crystal fields, the storms, and the scouts had been tests, but what awaited them now would truly challenge their courage, ingenuity, and trust. Yet with Galen leading them, they knew they had a chance, because humans, he realized, were not just survivors. They were innovators, fighters, and protectors. And this strength, this indefinable spark of resilience and heart, would guide them through the trials to come. The canyon widened, revealing a hidden valley glowing with soft bioluminescent plants. Galen led Liara and Serena forward, cautious but determined. The princess's portal lay somewhere within this valley, a secret known only to the Celestari Empire. Galen had no idea what to expect, but he trusted his instincts. Every step carried the weight of responsibility, not just for their lives, but for the fate of an entire civilization. As they progressed, the hum of machines reached them before they could see them. Scyther had found the portal. Galen's jaw tightened. "We're running out of time," he muttered. "We have to move faster and smarter." The valley was deceptive. The glowing plants created shadows that seemed to twist and dance. Strange creatures lurked among them, some curious, some dangerous. Galen's eyes scanned constantly. "Stay close. Use the light to your advantage, but don't touch anything unnecessary. Nature here fights back." Liara and Serena followed, placing small devices on the ground that projected protective shields. Their technology was impressive, but it could not replace Galen's experience. He jumped over pits, ducked under low-hanging plants, and used fallen logs as bridges. Every action was calculated. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them. From the shadows emerged Zither's elite enforcers, sleek robots with glowing red eyes and weapons that fired concentrated energy beams. The princesses froze. Galen's heart pounded, but his mind worked faster. He knew brute strength alone would not win this fight. He had to use strategy, the environment, and unpredictability. "Move behind me," he shouted. "Use the trees for cover. Follow my lead. Galen leapt onto a fallen log and kicked over a stack of rocks, creating a barrier between them and the machines. The robots hesitated for a moment, scanning for movement. He rolled to the side, grabbing a long branch and using it to trip one of the machines. Sparks flew and the robot crashed into the ground. Liara used her device to project a blinding light, confusing two more enforcers. Serena activated a sonic pulse that forced the remaining robots to stagger. Galen knew this was only the beginning. We need to get to the portal now. Stay sharp. The trio ran, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. The princess's portal shimmered in the distance, a swirling vortex of light and energy, almost too beautiful to believe. It promised safety, but reaching it would not be easy. Zither's forces were relentless, adapting quickly to every move. Galen's mind raced. He saw a steep cliff beside them and a thick vine dangling from a tree. Climb, he shouted, grabbing Serena first and pulling her up. Liara followed, and then Galen swung himself onto the cliff. From this higher vantage, he could see Zither himself approaching, a towering figure in black armor, his presence radiating menace. Zither raised a hand, and the robots stopped in formation. Surrender the princesses, human, he called, his voice like metal grinding against metal. Resistance is futile. Galen did not flinch. He could feel the fear, but he did not let it control him. You underestimate humans, he said simply. We don't give up. We fight. We survive. Zither stepped forward, energy crackling from his gauntlets. His machines advanced again, surrounding them. Galen glanced at Liara and Serena. When I say go, run for the portal. I'll hold them off. Liara shook her head. No, Galen. We can help. Together! Galen smiled faintly. I trust you both. But right now I need you to move. You've made it this far because we all played our parts. Now play yours. Run. As the princesses dashed toward the portal, Galen faced Zither directly. The warlord lunged, energy blasting from his gauntlets. Galen dodged, narrowly avoiding a strike that would have torn him apart. Using his environment, he rolled behind a cluster of rocks and grabbed a fallen branch. With precise timing, he struck one of Zither's gauntlets, causing sparks and forcing the warlord to stagger. Zither roared in frustration. You are just a human. You cannot defeat me? Galen gritted his teeth. I may be human, but that's enough. He sprinted forward, using a combination of agility, strength, and cunning. He kicked over more rocks, creating obstacles. He swung from vines, launching himself at the machines and dismantling them piece by piece. His movements were unpredictable, a mix of raw power and quick thinking that no machine could anticipate. Meanwhile, the princesses neared the portal. Liara's device hummed as she activated the portal's interface. Serena held her hand steady, focusing her energy to stabilize the swirling vortex. The portal flared, becoming a beacon of hope in the valley. Zither, furious, charged at them, energy crackling. Galen intercepted him, blocking a strike with a fallen branch and pushing him back with a force that surprised even the warlord. Go, Galen shouted. Now. Liara and Serena jumped into the portal just as Galen landed a decisive blow, sending Zither stumbling backward. The portal closed behind them, leaving Galen alone with the warlord's remaining forces. But Zither paused, glaring at him. This is not over, human. You will regret defying me. Galen stood tall, chest heaving but unbroken. Maybe, he said. But right now you've lost. With the princesses safe, Galen retreated into the shadows of the valley. The remaining machines were scattered, confused, and without leadership. He knew Zither might return, but for now the mission was complete. The Celestari Empire's heirs were alive, and their trust in humans had been proven true. Later, aboard the Celestari flagship, Liara and Serena thanked Galen. You have done more than protect us, Liara said. You have shown us what humans are capable of. Your courage, your strength, your heart. It is extraordinary, Serena nodded. You risked everything for us, for strangers. That is what makes humans remarkable. You have our eternal gratitude. Galen smiled, feeling a quiet satisfaction. I didn't do it for thanks, he said. I did it because it was right. Because someone had to, and because humans survive by helping each other. The princesses looked at him with admiration, their expressions filled with respect and awe. They offered him a place in their empire, a chance to see the stars and worlds beyond imagination. But Galen shook his head. I belong on my planet, he said, but I will carry this experience with me, and if the universe ever calls again, humans will answer. As he returned to Aurelia 9, the red sun casting its final rays across the rugged landscape, Galen felt a sense of pride and clarity. Humans were small in the galaxy, often underestimated, but they were resilient, inventive, and brave. Their strength was not just in muscle or technology. It was in heart, in spirit, in the refusal to give up when faced with impossible odds. Back on his home planet, life returned to its harsh but familiar rhythm. Galen continued his explorations, his work, and his quiet heroism. But he carried with him the knowledge that he had made a difference in the galaxy, that humans could stand alongside the greatest civilizations, not through superiority but through courage, ingenuity, and heart. And somewhere among the stars, Liara and Serena remembered the human who had risked everything for them, the human who had shown that true strength was measured not just by power, but by spirit. The universe was vast and dangerous, but Galen Ward had proven that humanity, resourceful, brave, and compassionate, was never to be underestimated. The stars above Aurelia 9 shone brighter that night, a silent tribute to a man who had shown what made humans truly strong.